Is it possible that there are cruise passengers out there who don't think before they type, that don't read before they speak, or actually have no clue what they're talking about before they write in a comment? Well, I think today's comments might have you asking those very questions. Good Saturday morning, everybody. Chris here with High Seas Cruising, and welcome to this week's episode of What Every Cruiser Wants. And we are back with 3 new cruise comments for you this week. And I got some examples today of people that, well, they clearly don't read the cruise contract or pay any attention to what they book and different things that can happen with that particular booking. I mean, there are such things as non-refundable. There are such things as itinerary changes due to weather-related events. Obviously, you don't want to go someplace where there is a hurricane. And then there are some passengers out there that really, I don't think they understand who controls passport requirements. What's necessary for you to enter and depart the United States? Well, that's not determined by the cruise line, yet there's some people out there that really seem to think that it is. So let's jump into today's comments. Let's find out. Do you agree with these people? Do you disagree? Should they have done a little reading, a little research, perhaps understood what they were talking about before they wrote in these? Now, is anybody out there confused by the word non-refundable? Is anybody out there actually confused that your cruise booking could have a non-refundable deposit, and based on how close you are to embarkation day, can also make a determination to how much of a refund you are going to get? Once you get X number of days before embarkation, before your departure date, yeah, that percentage gets lower and lower and lower that you could possibly get back. Now, insurance is a whole other thing. You should always have cruise insurance because you never know what could happen. But if you, as a cruise passenger, book a non-refundable cruise, non-refundable deposit, which I've booked many of these through the booking engine, and it says this is a non-refundable deposit. Something happens and you can't make your cruise. At this point, really, do you still call and blame the cruise line for not refunding a non-refundable deposit? Started a new job, healed. My new employer will not allow me vacation time so soon. I called and canceled my November cruise in Sunshine. You have non-refundable deposits. I guess that's the way Carnival scams their customers. Their rules that they obviously know people don't read into those final small details. It should be stated when you book with some sort of pop-up before you hit that final key. Even your PVP didn't notify me before the booking of this. Don't tell me it's in the fine print because nobody reads that. This is unjust. This is unfair. Not that you would care, but I have started work as an emergency dispatcher in blank, Virginia. So non-refundable deposits is the way that Carnival Cruise Lines scams their customers. I mean, is it like all of the other cruise lines out there? You could have a non-refundable deposit. I mean, airlines, couldn't you get a non-refundable deposit on certain airline bookings? I don't know. I guess maybe it's just Carnival that does this, right? And this is how they're scamming you. It's not like the non-refundable deposit has been around for a hot minute. No, 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 no. It's not like it tells you when you're booking a non-refundable deposit. No, no, no. But because it's written in the fine print and nobody reads that, that is somehow the cruise line's fault. It's unfair. It's unjust because they didn't read what they booked. How does that make any sense? How is it the cruise line's fault that you as the consumer didn't do your due diligence? You didn't pay attention to what was going on. How is that the cruise line's fault? But you know how it is in today's world. Nobody blames themselves. Nobody takes responsibility, it seems like. At least those that complain on the internet. Somehow these people always have the victim mentality. And here's another example of that. Now, another good example of that is we had to miss a cruise port due to weather. In this particular case, a hurricane. Because who has not ever thought to themselves, my God, my cruise port is being bashed by a hurricane, but I insist we go there, so just pull on in anyway. And of course, the captain's going to go, well, sure. Bob from Spokane over here wants to go to Grand Turk, so let's pull right on in. But we all know the real reason. That's not why the cruise line skips the ports. They're skipping the ports so they can get more money from you, of course. Safety's not the reason. It's all about cash. Hey, John Heald, I am on the Venzia and we have missed Grand Turk. It was the port we were most looking forward to because of supposed bad weather. Why has no compensation in the form of an onboard spending credit, $100 would be acceptable, or a discount of a future cruise? There was not even an open bar hour or happy hour. Carnival did this because you knew this would make you big bucks from the casino and bars, and all we got back was $17 in port tax. We New Yorkers deserve more, much more than this, John. What do you say to a person like this? You booked a cruise that said, hey, itineraries may change. In this particular case, Grand Turk had to get skipped over bad weather. Safety comes first. It's amazing how some cruise passengers don't seem to get that, of course. But immediately when it doesn't happen, they're like, show me the money. Give me money for missing a cruise port that I agreed ahead of time is a possibility could happen. $100 would be okay with me. Where was my open bar? Where was my happy hour? Where was my discount on my future cruise because you had to skip this port over weather? But then they end it by saying, well, the only reason Carnival did this, the only reason is so they could make more money. Because now the casinos can stay open. Now the bars can stay open. That is the real reason we skip Grand Turk. That's right. It's all about greed. Has nothing at all to do with safety. No, not at all. It's all about the greed. And we all know that that's really why cruise lines skip ports, not them pesky hurricanes. And finally, sometimes a cruise passenger writes in a comment that honestly is based purely in ignorance. They had no clue whatsoever about what they were talking about. They thought they knew. They thought that they were smart. They thought they were making a very valid point, but no, not even remotely close to fact, truth, or who even controls it. Because guess what? The cruise lines do not control the documentation that is required for entering into this country. Mr. Heald, with over 20 million people now flying and cruising with Real ID, when will Carnival allow Real ID holders to use the passport line when we get off the cruise? Why, when this is America's preferred form of travel ID, are we pushed into the slowest line? It is bias. Fix it. So the Real ID. You know, I'm pretty sure everybody understands that what Real ID is for is domestic air travel. This was something they came down and said, you guys remember this was back in May when this kicked in and said, look, you want to fly domestically in the United States, you got to have the little star, the Real ID on your driver's license. That was for domestic air travel. Has absolutely nothing to do with leaving this country. Nothing. There are not people out there cruising with a Real ID as their form of identification, except in conjunction with a copy of your birth certificate. So it's still a government issued ID and a birth certificate or a passport. That's how you get on a cruise ship. So nobody out there is going, look, I got Real ID card. No other form of documentation in boarding cruise ships. So when you get off of the cruise, after you boarded with your picture ID and your birth certificate, you get off the cruise ship. There's two lines, those that have passports and those that don't. That's where you have to go, even if you have a Real ID. Cruisers understand this. Cruisers know this. You know ahead of time whether or not you're traveling on a passport or not, but they want to know, when will Carnival allow them to get in the passport line? Because it's biased that they won't let them get in there, because this is America's preferred form of travel ID. Well, one, Americans didn't have a choice. Okay, this was pushed down by the government that everybody will get real ID to fly domestically. So Americans didn't really pick or choose that. And the biggest one here of all, Carnival Cruise Lines, or any cruise line, does not pick and choose what form of identification you have to have when you disembark that cruise ship. That is controlled by customs. They have a line for those that have passports. They have a line for those that are there with ID and birth certificates. Again, not decided by the cruise line. So why are you writing in about an ID that has, look, nothing to do with cruising at this point, blaming the cruise line because you have to stand in the line because you haven't gotten a passport, not the cruise line's decision, claiming this is what Americans have and want and it's their preferred way of travel, claiming it's biased, and demanding that Carnival fix something that they don't control. See what I mean? Write in a comment where you are just wrong across the board, where your information is incorrect, your facts don't exist at all, and that you've taken something that apparently you don't really know very much about and blamed it on the cruise line because, well, you can't do whatever you want to do. You chose not to get a passport, and now you got to stand in the slower line. Again, how is that the cruise line's fault? And damn, do a little research next time. And that is going to be our video for today. Now, if you've enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you haven't done so yet, do me a favor and hit subscribe. It is free to do so. Helps our channel grow. Let you know anytime we put out a new video. Hope everyone out there is having a really great day. And like always, we will see you out on the high seas.